Here's a simple question. When you're in conflict, any kind of conflict, work, partner, friend, anything where you feel a kind of buzz and a charge and like you've got to do something quickly and it's social, your first reaction, do you tend to sulk? Do you tend to get angry? Or do you tend to show scorn? Notice which one you have as your default. Everybody's got a default. One of those three. In fact, we actually only have three fundamental social fears, and each one has its own reactivity, its own way to react and to win the conflict. One fear is called I'm not seen. It means particularly I'm not seen for who I am, the kind of I'm not seen that you might have felt when you were 5 or 6 years old and you performed well for your parents and you knew what they wanted you to do in order to get approval from them, and you thought to yourself, but that's not who I am. I'm this goofy kid, and that's good enough. You may not have had that conscious thought, but you felt at some point, almost everybody has this, no matter how nice your parents were, no matter how kind, no matter how wise they were, no matter how mean they were, the feeling of I'm not seen accurately for who I am. And it becomes simply I'm not seen. The second fear that all of us have, because we only have three, we may default to one, but we have all three, all of us. The second fear is I'm not in control. And it doesn't mean I'm not in total control of everything in my life. It means that right at this moment, there's some way I feel like I need to be in control. And the third fear is I'm not acknowledged for being right. It's the fear of, hey, I'm right. Don't you notice it? I'm right about this, and you're wrong about this. And each of the fears has, as I said, its corresponding reaction. It's defense. This is the sum total of our fundamental social defensive structure. Sulking, getting angry, and being scornful. There are flavors of it. There's a kind of sulking that rises to, I don't know you anymore, I'm leaving. There's the kind of anger that rises to physical violence. There's a kind of scorn that rises to grandiosity and mental annihilation of virtually everybody around you. But most people sit in a more normal form of each of the three. We all have all three. Typically, you'll be strong in one, you'll default to one, and in most defensive situations, you'll try that one. And if it doesn't work, you'll try a second, right? And then there's a distant third that seldom comes to it, that you might express very infrequently or notice in yourself very infrequently. This really helps to see these three fundamental defensive postures. It helps particularly with people who you get into frequent conflict with, like a partner or a boss or an employee, right? And to notice that I am repetitively going to scorn, right? And trying to win the conflict with scorn. And then my partner is repetitively going in the same conflict to sulking and withdrawal to win the conflict. That happens to be the two that my partner and I, my wife and I, have. I have the scornful, I'm not acknowledged for being right default when I'm defensive, and she has the sulking withdrawal, I'm going to go walk away defense, which means that whenever we're in a conflict, she's walking out of the room and I'm following, telling her how she's wrong. One odd thing about these three is that they are all of equal validation, right? Anger gets a bad rap because it's the only one that can rise to physical violence. All of them can rise to a way of destroying the other person, mentally or physically, or just getting out of the room and disappearing from the other person and destroying them in kind of reverse. So they all have their acting out, and nobody exactly knows where the line is between what's appropriate and what's acting out. But most of us, most of the time, And some of us, all of the time, stay within the norms and within the acceptable defensive postures. It doesn't mean that we're not annoying to our partner. It doesn't mean we're not annoying to the person we're in a conflict with. But it helps a lot to be able to abstract out what my default is and how I keep returning to that default over and over and over again, to help me when the reactivity period is over, to be able to jump right back in to what initiated the conflict without a defensive posture. If my defensive posture is mechanical, and if I see it as mechanical, and I see it as just, this is what I keep doing over and over, it's just the way I defend myself when I feel I need to defend myself, then by abstracting it and being able to see it in action, all of a sudden the conflict stops being an engagement over a pair of needs, but is the futility. It's visible that it's the futility of one defensive posture presenting itself to another defensive posture. So in every conflict, both people are presenting their default defensive posture and then possibly trying their second and rarely trying their third in order to win. It's simply win. I mean, if you're in a conflict, it means one person is expressing something they want as if they needed it urgently at the moment, and the other person is expressing what they want that takes up the same space and acting because of the conflict with the same kind of urgency that it has to be settled right then. They're never, or virtually never, actually needed to be settled right then. But everybody has a sense of urgency when they're in the defensive conflict. And if you wait it out, and if you're able to step away and abstract out that, oh, these were two defensive postures talking to each other, you might be able to notice that every social conflict is a yes, no, or a maybe. There's no hurt feeling or emotion to a yes, no, or a maybe, if that's all that it is. And if you recognize social conflicts don't need to be won. The only thing you need in life is survival, right? So what you need is food in the larder and a roof over your head and clothes on your back and to not be in a dark alley with a mugger in front of you. That's about it. Everything else you can take your time for. There's no urgency for. You don't need it. You want it. Most of us live in these defensive postures, not noticing that we're just constantly defaulting to one of these three defensive postures, and the people around us are constantly defaulting to one of the others, and yeah, we get into conflicts. And this is the way, as human beings, we have been trained to settle them, is through defensive postures. It's kind of funny. We're always a defense meeting another defense. Nobody's ever on attack. Everybody's on defense. Interesting to know. Thank you.